Hello, students, and anyone else who may be watching from home. This is Mr. Borges, also known as Zanzolo, and today we're going to start our next project in Scratch. There's a new button here on our homepage for Pong. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I meant to put a wacky animated image here, and I'll still go ahead and do that. But here we have our assignment page for Pong. So we're going to start our next project. Our Pong project will do more variables, and it's going to make a 2-player game. So here's our assignment checklist. So you're going to please make your own Scratch Pong project. Your project needs the following things, right? This is Pong. So I don't know if you're familiar with Pong. I know it's an old school game. You're going to have 2 paddles. You're going to write the code for them. One player controls one paddle. One player controls the other. You're going to have a sprite that's the ball that moves, that bounces around off the walls and bounces off the paddles. You're going to have 2 variables that track the score, right? If one paddle misses, if a player misses the ball and it goes past them, right, then the other player will score a point. We're going to keep track of points, and the game's going to end based on points. You know what I mean? Like you say, when somebody gets to 10 points or 15 points or whatever it is, they'll end the game. When the game is over, you're going to hide all the sprites, the paddles and the ball will hide, and then you're going to change the backdrop to say who won. Either player 1 wins or player 2 wins, or blue wins or green wins, or however you decide to do that. But you're going to have 2 different backdrops, so you let them know who won. Then you're going to have a better title than untitled, have some instructions, explain how to play the game, and then submit your project to Canvas. So here's an example right here. I'm going to go ahead and kick this into full screen so that we can see what's going on. So when I go ahead and click the green flag, ball starts moving all by itself, and it's a fair start. And I can use the up and down arrow keys to move the left paddle, and I can use the W and S paddle keys to move the keyboard keys to move the player 1 paddle. And you have a little bit of control. If I hit I hit it way too low. If I try to hit the paddle right in the middle, it's going to be hard to do. But if I try to hit it right in the middle, I can send it straight out. If I want to send it up, I hit it kind of high. And if I want to send it low, if I want to send it low, I hit it kind of low. And so you do have some control, some aim of where you're shooting the ball. It's not just bouncing off. And we're testing points. We're checking to see if we missed the paddle by color. So if the ball is actually shooting at the paddle to try to give it a fair start for whoever gets the serve. But if the ball touches purple, as you can see, then player 2 gets the point, because that means that player 1 missed. If it touches green, that means player 2 missed. That means that then player 1 gets the point. Right, so that's the big idea. Now I could sit here and just let this go until somebody gets to 15 points, but that's going to take a while. So what we can do is, since I'm the programmer, we can always speed upify that. So I'm going to go ahead and set player 1's score to 14 points, or 13. Right. So now they got 14, and then there you go. Player 1 wins. Now, if we want to test the other win condition the other way, what I can do is I can set player 2's score to be 13. I'm going to have to move the paddles a little bit. And there you go. All right, player 2 wins. So this is a way to test that out. Since we're the program, we don't have to sit around waiting for the score to get to 15. We can change the score. Okay. So I'm not going to click Save Now and go back to the project page, because then it's going to stay stuck on, my thumbnail will be stuck on player 2 wins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the game and then go ahead and stop it. This is what I want my thumbnail to look like. Now is when I'm going to click Save. And so this, when I go to my project page, this is going to be the starting screen that everybody else is going to see. They're not going to see player 2 wins or whatever. It's not as polished. I don't want them to see that. This is what I want them to see. Okay, then what you'll do is you'll copy the address here and you'll turn that into Canvas. I think everybody knows how to do that at this point. So just a quick review of the checklist, and then we're going to build this project. So you're going to have two paddles. We've seen how that works. One player is going to control one player is going to control the other. You're going to have a ball. I put it in quotes because it doesn't have to be a ball. You can use the world or, I don't know, something else. Something else maybe, a bowl of Cheetos. I don't know. You're going to have two variables keeping track of the score. You can see that on my project, I did have two variables keeping track of the score. And then when the game's over, we hid all the sprites and then change the backdrop to say who won. That means we have to show all the sprites when we start the project also. Okay, and then you're going to have a better title than untitled and some instructions. So that's the big idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and build this entire project right now. And you can feel free to please take a crack at it without watching the video if you'd like to, or this video is here. You can pause, fast forward, and rewind it as much as you need. So I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose a sprite. There's a paddle sprite, which is the one that I used. Right? This is the sprite right here that I used when I did my project, but it does not have to be the paddle sprite. It helps if it's something that's kind of flat, right? So, right, you can draw your own. You can use these lines. You can kind of use anything, but just be aware that if you try to use this car as a paddle, you're going to get weird bounces off of all the weird bumps and sides of the thing. So using something that's kind of flat does tend to work out better. So, but you can use different things. If you want to get creative or whatever else, it doesn't have to be. It does not have to be the paddle sprite. All right, so I'm going to select this whole thing and rotate it so that it is looking kind of straight up and down as much as I can get it anyway. Something like that, and then that's going to be one of my paddles. Right, and then I'll make another paddle that is a different colored pencil or something. So this paddle's a little bit big, I think. I'm going to make it smaller. You're going to adjust your own stuff. Something like that. I don't know. I can make it even smaller. Something like that. So that seems like a decent paddle there. I think it's a little bit crooked still. It's easier for me to see it now. Something like that. All right, so we have one paddle. We're going to make the controls for the paddle. So when the green flag is clicked, we're going to do something the whole time that the game is running, over and over and over. We're going to check if, and let's say we're going to control this paddle with the W for up and S for down. You can pick other different things if you'd rather do that. So I'm going to get a sensing block, and we're going to check key space is pressed. So if key W is pressed, whoopsie, what happened there? If key W is pressed, then we're going to move up. That's the positive Y direction. So we're going to motion block, we're going to change Y by a positive amount. And now we're going to duplicate this and make another one for if key S is pressed. We're going to go in the negative Y direction, the down direction, negative 10. Something like this, and then I can put those inside here. So now I have control of the paddle. I'm only changing the Y direction though, right? It's not moving side to side. It's not moving in the X direction. So that is pretty good. If I want to always start in the middle right here, I can get a motion block and tell it to do that. Right? So I want it to start where Y equals 0. That's going to be the middle of the up and down. And this, right now it's set to negative 186. I'm never going to remember that. I'm just going to change it to negative 180. It's going to only move my pencil a little bit from where I had it, but it's going to be a number that's easier for me to remember later on. Okay, so now we're going to make another sprite. I'm just going to duplicate this one we already have. Now I've got another one, pencil 1 and pencil 2. I'm going to stick this one. Where is it supposed to go? Well, right. Before it was negative 180, I'm just going to make this one positive 180. All right, that's going to get this distance here to be the same as this distance over there. All right, and we're starting in the middle also, but now, right, if I click the green flag, both pencils are getting controlled by W and S. So they have the same control, which isn't what I want. So I'm going to change the control for pencil 2. Pencil 2 has different controls, right? For up, I'm going to use up arrow, and for down, I'm going to use down arrow. So there we go. So now I have separate controls for paddle 1 and for paddle 2, and 2 different people can control them. Okay, so now we're going to get a ball. And the ball sprite can be lots of different things. There's a lot of different things that could work as a ball. You can use other things. This doesn't have to be a ball, right? There's an apple in here. There's planets and stuff in here. You can use different things. Just beware, if you use a really weird shape, you're going to get some really weird bounces off of it sometimes. And, if you use weird shapes, and that's fine, right? That's up to you. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and use a kind of a more traditional ball shape here, and I'm going to leave the ball kind of comically big. It seems like it's a little bit big. My first thought was to make it smaller, but I'm not going to make it smaller. All right, so here's what we're going to do. When the green flag is clicked, I have instructions for the ball. We're going to, when the green flag is clicked, we're going to, something's going on with my project. Why can't I move? I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now notice that something weird is happening, and I'm going to go ahead and try to refresh the page. Sometimes weird stuff happens with Scratch, and we don't necessarily always know why. Sometimes we never know why that weird thing was happening. Oh, that's acting normal now. So when the green flag is clicked, we're going to go to the middle. 0, 0. It's a fair place to start. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the ball, basically start play. Now I can write the code right here to start play, because when I click the green flag, I do want to start play, but I also want to start play every time somebody gets a point. I want to start play over again. So one way to do that without having to write this code that I'm about to write over and over is to have it be separate. I don't want the green flag to click be the thing that starts it. I'm going to have something else start it. I'm going to have a message start it. So I'm going to send a message. I'm going to broadcast a message, and I'm just going to call it play. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bit of code over here that says when I receive play, I'm going to do some stuff. So that stuff that I'm going to do, it happens, sure, when the green flag is clicked, that's one thing that starts it out. But then also every time somebody gets a point, we're also going to start this out. So I have more than one way I can start this out. Right? You don't have to do it that way. I could write all this same code and then write all the same code over again, but I think I would probably still end up using when I receive play to do that part of it. So I'm not going to write the code twice. I hope that kind of makes sense. It'll make more sense as we go if it didn't make sense yet. So when I receive play, what do I want to do? Well, I want the ball to start and to keep on going as long as it needs to. There's not a limit. I can't use a repeat block because I don't know ahead of time how long it needs to go. It needs to keep going on and on and on. What? Moving. And if it's on the edge, bounce. Right? And then what we can do is to make it sort of random, like, so should the ball go to the right or should the ball go to the left? We're going to use that random trick that we used in Kaboom project. We're going to say, okay, I want sometimes to do one thing and sometimes to do something else. That's random, right? So we're going to check if our random number equals, there's only two things here. So we're going to pick a random number between 1 and 2. And we're still going to say if our random number equals 1. If our random number equals 1, then we're going to point towards pencil 1. And then if it doesn't, or else, whoops, I should have got an if then else block. if then else. Then I can say if random number equals 1, then point to pencil 1, or else point to pencil 2. There we go. So now what I can do is whenever the ball starts out, it's going to pick a random number. Like we also actually want it to go back to the start every time to be fair. So it's going to go to the middle. Every time we start a new play, we're going to go to the middle and we're going to check. We're going to flip a coin basically. If we get heads, we're going to do this thing. If we don't get heads, that means we didn't, or else, then we're going to do this, right? And so about half the time it's going to point towards this, and about half the time it's going to point towards that. And I can show you something about how that looks. So that time, see, sometimes it's going off towards one paddle, sometimes it's going off towards the other paddle, and it is sort of random. So sometimes you get a bunch of the same ones in a row, but it is random. So that's the idea. So we need to then add a bit more. We need to add a way for the paddle to actually bounce the ball, because right now the ball's going right through the paddle. Then we're also going to add a way to lose, what happens if the ball hits the edge, and then we're going to, that's going to involve points. So first, let's just have the paddles bounce the ball. That's instructions for the ball again. So while the ball is moving along, this is when I'm getting ready to play. I go to the middle, I decide which way I'm going to go, then I start doing something over and over. I'm going to move, I'm going to check if I'm on the edge, I'm going to bounce, I'm also going to check if I'm touching the paddle as I'm moving over and over. So we're going to check if touching paddle. If you are touching pencil 1, then what we're going to do is we're going to do a bounce. And there's no block. There's no block for bounce. Right? We have if on edge bounce. We don't have a if touching pencil bounce, which is kind of too bad. Actually, that would be a really convenient piece of code. So we're going to have to build if touching pencil. We're going to have to build the bounce part ourselves. And so one way you can do that, and this is something that I just figured out by experimenting around with it. There's probably lots of ways to do this, but one of the things we can do is we can just do a 180. Right? But if you just do a 180, you won't have any control over the way the ball bounces. It's always going to bounce off the opposite direction of what it came in. And that is, here, I'll put this in here. I'm going to try to be able to show that to you. You see, even if I hit it low, it bounces straight off. If I hit it high, it bounces straight off. I actually can't even aim this at all. I can't even have anything to do with it. It always just does the same thing. This is actually kind of boring. I don't really have any control over this at all. So what we can do is, the 180 part isn't the problem. What we can do is, by adding a little bit of aim, we can say, before we do a 180, let's point towards the pencil we're touching. And so by doing that, it's going to get you a bounce that you have a little bit more aim over. And you can see now I can, if I hit the low, I can send it low. If I hit it high, I can send it high. If I hit it right in the middle, I can send it pretty much straight back, although it's tricky to do that. Tricky to hit it exactly in the middle. I can send it pretty much straight. That's the idea. So that bit of code handles the bouncing, and we're going to duplicate it to do the same for pencil 2. If touching pencil 2, point towards pencil 2, and then do another 180. So actually, that's it for controlling the pencils now. So I can move back and forth, I can bounce them, and I can get my 2 players playing Pong. Now, the thing about Pong, though, is that if you miss, you got to lose a point. Right? So that kind of thing should never be able to happen. I should have lost already. So what we're going to do is do this I'm going to do mine based on color. You could probably think of a different way to do it. But I'm going to draw a backdrop. And for my backdrop, I'm going to have 2 different colors. So I'm going to use this purple color is just fine for one of my colors. And then for this other color, I'm just going to pick something else. So there's my 2 colors. So touching red is going to be, or touching purple, either one is going to be the end of play. someone's going to get a point, and then we're going to start play over again. And that's the idea. So let's go back to the ball. So this is the code that controls play. So we're going to check if touching purple. We're going to check if touching red. And if we are, if touching purple, if touching color, and we're going to pick the exact color we want with this color picker right here. If touching this color purple, what are we going to do? Going to award a point. That means that player 1 over here missed. So that means that the player 2 over here got the point. So we need points to keep track of player 1 and player 2. We're going to do that with variables, right? So I'm going to make a variable. I'm going to call this one, I'm just going to call it P1. I'm going to make another one because I know I'm going to need it for P2. Player 2. Right, so what we're going to do, right? We need to reset those scores. I'm just already kind of thinking ahead about that. We need to reset P1 and P2 should both start out at 0 when the green flag is clicked. And then if touching color purple, that's when we're going to change which one, right? This is, if I'm calling this player 2, then we're changing player 2. Score will go up by 1. Now we're going to duplicate this same idea. Actually, before we even duplicate it, right? What else do we need to do? That also is when the gameplay is supposed to start over, right? So I'm going to send a message, even though this is already going. I'm going to send a message to start it over again. That'll actually break this forever loop that's going and start this bit of code over again if I send the message, if I broadcast play. So change the score by 1 and broadcast play. That's going to get that to start over. Now I'm going to duplicate this for the other side. This one's going to be if touching color, the other side color, whatever that ends up being. If that happens, we're going to get the other player a point. And then we are going to play again. Now it's up to you. I think in my example, I put a little wait block in here. I'm just going to see what happens if we don't put the wait block in there and just try it out. So if I move, see right away, it's almost too fast. Oh, what happened? It's already starting again. I think putting a little bit of a wait block in there makes sense, but you decide how much, right? Maybe a half second is enough. I don't know. I'm going to duplicate that because I need 2 of them. And I'm putting that, right? It's before I broadcast play. It wouldn't make sense to, right? This bit of code right here, basically what's going to happen is, I know it's kind of weird, but by broadcasting play, I'm going to start this off from within itself. But when I do that, it starts over at the top again and it stops whatever was happening before. So if I did it the other way around, it would broadcast play and this wait would never happen. And I think that probably makes sense to people, but I can explain it more. If you have questions, please do let me know. So you can see it stops for like half a second, then starts to play again. Half a second, then starts to play again. And the different players are getting points. So it can go on that way. And that's pretty good. So now all we've really got left to do, besides, the obvious stuff of getting a title and some instructions, is dealing with the game over situation. I think I'm going to go ahead and put the player 2 points over here. That seems to make more sense to me. But you can put them wherever you want. Then what we're going to do is we've got some more things to check, right? We're going to check. I'll go ahead and stop this. We're going to check. So we've got a lot of if blocks. We're checking if different things happen. If touching the pencil 1, if touching pencil 2, if touching color purple, if touching color red. Then we need to check 2 more things based on points. We're going to check if player 1 has, let's say, 15 points. So, or for this, for the sake of this example, you could do a lower number. But anyway, so if that variable player 1 is equal to, and that's an operator block, is equal to, if player 1 is equal to 15 points or whatever you're doing, then we're going to stop the game. But before we do, under control, stop the game. But before we do, we want to do a couple of other things. We're supposed to hide all the other sprites, so we can tell the ball to hide. That's easy. But how are we going to tell the paddle to hide? We're going to have to send it a message. And so we can broadcast a message. I'm just going to name this hide, so that the paddles can receive the message to hide. Right. Then we can go back to the paddles and tell them, okay, when I receive hide, hide. That means you're going to have to show, though, at the beginning, or else no one will ever see you. Same for the other pencil. Sure, you got to show at the beginning, and then we're going to hide when I receive hide. Right, that'll make those pencils hide. When the game is over, it'll make them show when the game starts. Right? We also, if we're going to hide the ball, we also need to show the ball. Show. There we go. So that handles that. Now we just need to, the last piece is about the backdrop, right? We're going to switch the backdrop. Before we stop all, we're going to switch the backdrop. Switch the backdrop to what? Well, I don't have another backdrop for that yet. We're going to have to go make it. Backdrops. So I'm going to rename this. This is the one we start with. I'm going to call it start so I don't lose track of what I'm doing. I'm going to, I think I'm just going to duplicate this. And then I'm going to put some text here. This is something like player 2 wins. And you can make this way bigger or whatever you want to do. I think I did something like this and the other. Something like that. All right, I don't know. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate that. This one is done. I'm going to call this P2 win. And then this one's going to be P1 win. And I'm going to change the text. I've already made this. Change the text. Player 1 wins. I'm going to select all this text right here and then change back my color. My color was supposed to be this. There we go. Something like that. So now I have my backdrops that I want. And I can go back to the code for the ball. So we're checking if player 1 gets 15 points, then hide the ball, broadcast hide, that hides the pencil, switch the backdrop to player 1 wins, and then stop the project. So this is going to go inside my forever loop also, but I'm going to duplicate it and make the player 2 version of this. If player 2 equals 15, we're still going to hide the ball. We're still going to send the hide message to hide the paddles. We're going to switch to P2 win backdrop and then stop all. And I'm going to put all of these two if blocks are just going to be, as you can see, we're stacking a bunch of if blocks inside of our loop. We've just got 2 more now. So we're going to put them in there also. So those are things that we're checking over and over again. Checking if the ball is touching the pencil, checking if it's touching pencil 2, checking if it's touching purple, checking if it's touching red, checking if player 1 got 15 points, checking if player 2 got 15 points. And that's the big idea. So we can go ahead and whoopsie. You see the problem? Nowhere in my program did I switch the backdrop. Switch backdrop to, when I start out, when the green flag is clicked, switch backdrop to the starting backdrop. There we go. So now I'm just going to move around. You can see I can get a point there. The player can get points. And we can play back and forth. I think I'm going to add a sound. You know, that wasn't in the checklist. Maybe it should have been. But I think making some kind of a sound when the ball bounces, I think would be fun. That happens right here, right? Where we turn 180. Or we turn 180 when we're touching the paddle. So I'm just going to add a sound in there. I don't know. That seems fine to me. Maybe I'll make it a little softer. I like that. There we go. So what we're going to do is, under sounds, going to start the sound at the same time that we do the turn, the same time that we do the bounce. Yeah, I think that's better. It's going to make the game just a little bit more interesting. And you could even find some music or something if you wanted to. That might be cool too. So the idea is the game goes on like this, And then it's going to take a while to get 15 points. So we can just skip ahead. I'm going to get a variable. I'm the programmer. I can set these variables to whatever I want. I'm going to set this to 14. That's one away from winning. All right. So that's testing out player 1 winning. And then I'm going to also test out player 2 winning. There we go. So that seems to be working pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and throw this away. And I think this is working, but I'm not going to click save now and see the project page like this because I don't want this to be my thumbnail. I'm going to go ahead and start it and then stop it. Now I click save now. Now I go to the project page and this is going to be my thumbnail, which is what I want people to see when they start playing my game. I don't want them to see player 1 wins or whatever. Right, so you're going to get yourself a better title than untitled. You're going to get yourself some instructions. In this case, let people know, hey, this is a 2-player game. Right, and so you have different directions, right? So player 1 uses W and S, and player 2 uses up and down arrows, right? You don't have to write a whole essay, but just let people know how to play your game. Okay, then you're going to share your project. And then I'm not sharing, I'll go ahead and share mine as an example, but I'm going to delete this in a second anyway. Then you're going to copy your address here, go back to Canvas, and then you will have, I don't have it because I'm not in student view, you'll have a button right here that says start assignment, and then you're here, paste in your address from your project, and then click submit assignment. Make sure that it throws candy and tells you that it's submitted. And that's the big idea. All right, folks. So thanks for watching. Have fun making your own Pong projects, and we'll see you next time. Bye.